The wind had been howling since dawn, the kind that carved its voice into the bones of a man and reminded him how small he was beneath the sky. Caleb Hart rode with his coat collar pulled high, his breath frosting the air, his horse moving slow and careful through drifts that reached nearly to the saddle. Winter in the high plains did not ask permission, it simply arrived and tested who belonged and who did not. Caleb had lived alone on his ranch for 7 years now, ever since the land outlasted the grief that had followed him home from the war. He was known as a quiet man, dependable, distant, and unbreakable, but even unbreakable things cracked in weather like this. He should have turned back when the storm thickened, but something tugged at him, a restlessness that had nothing to do with cattle or fences. That tug would soon change everything. The snow fell heavier as the afternoon dimmed, swallowing the horizon until the world felt reduced to breath, hoofbeats, and instinct. Caleb slowed his horse when he noticed tracks half buried by fresh powder, bare feet, light, staggered, leading toward the ravine where the wind cut cruelest. No one sane walked barefoot in a storm like this. He dismounted, reins looped tight, and followed the tracks on foot, heart pounding not with fear but urgency. He had buried enough people to recognize the handwriting of death when he saw it forming. The ravine opened like a wound in the land, and there, huddled beneath a fallen cottonwood, were 2 young women pressed together, their hair rimed with ice, their skin blue with cold. One lifted her head when she heard him, eyes fierce even as her body shook. The other tried to rise and collapsed, a cough tearing from her chest. Apache. Sisters, he would later learn. In that moment, they were simply human beings on the edge of disappearing. Caleb did not hesitate. He wrapped them both in his coat, then in the spare blanket from his saddle, hands moving steady despite the storm clawing at his back. The fiercer one tried to speak, her words lost to chattering teeth, while the other clung to him with a grip that said she was afraid to let go of the warmth he offered. He lifted them one at a time onto his horse, settling them carefully, and began the slow, brutal ride home. The wind fought him every step, but Caleb had learned long ago that surrendering to weather was a choice that cost lives. He leaned forward, murmuring to the horse, promising shelter ahead even as his own lashes froze together. The ranch house appeared as a dark block against the white smoke from the chimney, a promise. Caleb carried the sisters inside, boots leaving wet tracks on the floor, and set them by the fire. He stripped off their frozen wraps with careful hands, replaced them with wool and heat, and warmed water for tea. The quieter sister shivered violently, her lips trembling as if holding back tears or prayers. The fierce one watched him the entire time, eyes sharp, measuring. When her voice finally found strength, it came low and careful. She thanked him in halting English and named herself Nita. Her sister, she said, was Sani. They had been driven from a camp by violence, chased by men who wanted what they could not take without blood. The storm had been their last enemy. Caleb listened without interrupting, his jaw set, firelight painting lines across his face that spoke of hard-earned patience. Night deepened, and the storm raged on, sealing the world away. Caleb set a pot of stew on the stove and sat back, letting the sisters eat slowly, color returning to their cheeks. Sani smiled at him between spoonfuls, a soft, grateful smile that landed somewhere unexpected in his chest. Nita did not smile, but her shoulders eased, and when she spoke again, it was with resolve. Their people valued debts, she said. Life debts most of all. He had saved them. The words carried weight, not drama. Caleb shook his head, uncomfortable. He said no debt was owed. He did what anyone should. Nita's gaze did not waver. Not anyone would, she replied. But you did. As the hours passed, the house felt smaller, warmer, altered by their presence. Caleb prepared the spare room, placing extra blankets on the bed, then paused, uncertain. The sisters exchanged a look and quietly chose to sleep near the fire, where they could see the door and each other. He respected that, laying out bedrolls instead. When the fire burned low and the wind's voice softened, Caleb sat alone at the table, staring into a mug gone cold. He had lived with silence so long it had become a companion. Now, in one night, the silence had changed shape. He felt it in the walls, in the breath of the house itself. Morning broke pale and clean. The storm had passed, leaving the land remade. Caleb stepped outside to check the animals and found Nita already there, wrapped in his spare coat, studying the horizon as if reading a story only she could see. Sani followed with a basket, offering to help, eager and gentle, her laughter quiet but bright. As the day unfolded, something subtle shifted. The sisters moved with purpose, mending what needed mending, asking before touching anything that was his. Caleb tried to insist they rest, but they shook their heads. Survival, they said, was not a spectator sport. By evening, the ranch felt less like a lonely outpost and more like a place chosen by fate. When Nita finally spoke of the future, she did so with the same steadiness she had shown since the ravine. Their people believed that lives saved were lives bound. She and Sonny would not leave him unguarded by gratitude. The words that followed were not a demand, but an offering, of loyalty, of shared life, of a union shaped by respect. Caleb felt the weight of it settle on him, heavy and unreal. He did not answer then. He only looked at the two women who had walked through death and into his home, and understood that the snow had chosen them all. If this story has drawn you in, if you feel the wind, the firelight, and the moment that changes everything, don't walk away just yet. Subscribe to the channel and stay with us, because this is only the beginning, and the next chapter will test every bond formed in the storm.